There's so much to talk about in the NFL algorithm that today's video we're going to talk about quarterbacks. We're just going to talk about quarterbacks. Let's discuss how they're organized in this file and what we can learn about them. So I added a little slicer here called position string combo. And what it does is it isolates a position and a string that they are at according to RotoWire's depth charts. So you've got things like K1, which is the number one kicker on every team, and we've got their rating. And some of the ratings I've created for players right now because none of them had stats last year. Kicker 2, right? How many teams have the second kicker? Very, very few. I think I made them all zeros. We'll have to take a look. So we've got this organization here by team. Yeah, I don't have any second kickers in here. How about that? Is that really the way to list? Let's check that out for a second. Yeah, Zane Gonzalez is injured. So every team has apparently one kicker. All right. That's all they had room for. Well, it's good to know. So we've got this list, and we're going to make this video about quarterbacks. So what do we do? Quarterback's an interesting position. You know, people are going to be drafting for quarterback in fantasy. You also want to know, what does the matchup look like for all the teams? And the way the algorithm's rating system works is you get a first string rating. If you're just looking at first string QBs, you get this range here. And some of these players have arbitrary ratings that I assigned them. Okay, so in order to really understand what we've done here, we're going to remove everybody's rating who has not played, because we're going to talk about everybody kind of individually in this video. The way to do that is to remove all the player override percentages. So I chose a number, and I have a copy of that number here so we can put it back in there quickly when we need to simulate what I spent time on. But it's important to just remove them all for a second so we can really take a look at what do we know about the players that are playing here. When I refresh that, what it shows, we're also going to have some injuries going on here as well, which we'll talk about in a second. Yes, who's injured? Kyler Murray is injured. So your only first stringer that's injured is Kyler Murray, and he's probably not playing. Okay. Everybody else who's questionable. Joe Burrow's questionable in Cincinnati. Okay. So these are important things to know. People that are just fine and questionable, we should say, and who are probably playing as first string quarterbacks are these players, right? Well, so what do we take from this list? We understand that algorithm really thinks Jalen Hurts contributes a lot, and Justin Fields for Chicago, and Lamar Jackson for Baltimore, and Daniel Jones for the Giants, and Josh Allen for Bills, and Patrick Mahomes. And this is the order. It's not necessarily order of fantasy points that these players score, but it's kind of loosely going to be in line with that because it does have a contribution percentage. You got a Sam Howell up there. I mean, when you think about the top quarterbacks in the league, do you put Sam Howell right behind Patrick Mahomes? Well, this is what it did for last year, but this is all last year. And I would argue Trevor Lawrence probably deserves more than a 0.24, but maybe it's other parts of Jacksonville that make them that make them a team that won more games last year. I don't know. Point is, it's showing you the order of your quarterbacks, and it's throwing zeros now with people that don't have any stats from last year. So when you're thinking about how teams might perform and how quarterbacks might perform, you know that Bryce Young for Carolina, CJ Stroud for Houston, and Anthony Richardson for Indianapolis are all going to be rookies. Some might play well, some might not, but you really don't know what to expect. And so you have to think about, certainly taking these teams is really, really sketchy, and taking these quarterbacks is also really, really sketchy because you just don't know. So it's just something to remember in all of these games, that while these players might play well, they're less likely to be as impactful as you think because it's their first time playing, right? So it's just good to know that when you're thinking about the list here. So this is just the first stringers. What about second stringers? It's interesting to look at which teams are flush with, seem to have high scoring second string quarterbacks. This means they would have depth at the quarterback position. Jarrett Stidham for Denver behind Russell Wilson, Jacoby Brissett behind Sam Howell in Washington, Zach Wilson behind Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Huntley behind Lamar, Sam Darnold, you start seeing these names. I don't think of these players as players, although Heineke has won some games. Cooper Rush, Andy Dalton is here. And then all these, Mitch Trubisky didn't play at all last year. Easton Stick, love that name. Love that name. Hockey fan name. Tanner McGee, all these players, we don't have any ratings for them at all because they're brand new. Although we do have some samples that I put in there, but you can see how you kind of want to put them down at like a 0.10 just to give them something equivalent to the other second stringers. What about third string quarterbacks? Here you've got real strength with Indianapolis. Indianapolis is flush with, starting a rookie and having two other ones. This is the sleeper backup QB pick, I think, of all fantasy picks. I saw this up here, and you can see why. Third string quarterback with a rookie starting, and he's got the highest rating, along with Trey Lance, who moved, I believe, had a great preseason and then got traded or something or signed with Dallas. So Jerry Jones is probably planning on Dak Prescott having some injury at some point and therefore having backup. And so that's a sneaky one as well, but I'm sure that's going to be heavily owned because it's Dallas. Skylar Thompson. And then a bunch of people that haven't played in a while, including Case Keenum, Hayner. We don't have any numbers for those guys. And then fourth string, it's just nobody because we don't even put Taysom Hill in there. All right, so back to first string quarterbacks for a second. So what we should really be doing when we're projecting is these are probably going to be the matchups. And when we add back in a rating for those guys, you'll see that down here, when we refresh this, that these guys all of a sudden get a rating of 0.1 and they have a little bit more impact on the game. But what a cool thing to do is when it comes to projections is we can take a look and say, all right, well, if these games played themselves out and we removed certain strings of people that we thought weren't going to play, meaning there's no second kicker that's playing. Let's say it's just QB1 versus QB1. So we got rid of all the other QB strings, right? We have just this QB1 matchup. What does that do to the scores? Changes them a lot. Puts Jacksonville on top against a rookie quarterback with Indianapolis. And it's interesting because, I think it starts to move stuff out. We've put Baltimore higher up now. Washington's still here. The Bears drop a little bit, but the Eagles are still all the way up here, making this a 24-16 game. All right, that's what we do if we just look at a QB1 comparison with the ratings we have in there. It's just, there's so many different ways to look at it, right? And so many different ways to say, well, what is a complete game? And it never really ends. So I just wanted to show you, it's endless if you want to mess with it and alter things to try to get every single matchup the way you would see it going in the game to give you a true representation of a projection. But, we do the best we can with it. And so that's kind of why I'm here to show you what's possible. And all of a sudden the Chargers jumped above the Eagles here for some reason because I added stuff in for Patriots players, right? I brought Ezekiel Elliott in and I moved the Patriots up here. So now all of a sudden it's the Chargers over Miami is the top pick. But as you can see, there's work to be done still. It never lands. All right. So that's the update. If you want to purchase a copy on KentBraverman.com and get rolling on RotoWire and start to learn how to have fun with it yourself. All right. Good luck. Now, your picks. Be winning.